Hi everyone, welcome back. Today my guest is Samantha Kellgren and we're talking all about hypothalamic amenorrhea, which is basically missing periods and being a little bit too healthy. So Samantha's going to share her story and her journey, but Samantha, for those who don't know, is certified through ACE Fitness and the Integrative Women's Health Institute as a preconception through postnatal health coach. So she supports women like before they have a baby and all the way through, which I absolutely love. She currently lives in Asheville with her husband, toddler, and dog. After being diagnosed with hypothalamic amenorrhea, or HA, and finding out it's possible to be too fit to get pregnant, she underwent IVF to have her son. She then made drastic changes to her unhealthy relationship with exercise and healthy eating. She now helps women through major mindset shifts and takes them from overexercising and undereating so that they can regain their cycles and get pregnant without going crazy. So welcome to the podcast, Samantha.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So before we get into all of the questions that I personally have for you, could you just go into your journey a little bit more? So I just give the very brief version, but I want to know a bit more in depth. And I feel like a lot of women can relate to your story. So in as much detail as you want, tell us about how you got to where you are today.
Yeah. So, like I said, I'm ACE certified. So I was a personal trainer and actually also did some run coaching. So I was coaching marathon runners. I was a marathon runner myself and ran my 7th marathon before I went off the pill to get pregnant. I was under that impression that I go off the pill, couple months, I'll be pregnant. Not the case for me. I went off the pill and did not get a period. And, the first month I wasn't surprised. I know that can happen. Your hormones are kind of kicking back into gear. After 3 months with nothing, I went to my OB and said, I visited her before I went off the pill. And, it's like, I'm back. Nothing happened. I went off the pill. I've gotten no period. So we did the Provera challenge, which you may have talked about that before, progesterone essentially. And once I stopped taking that, I was supposed to induce a bleed. Nothing happened again. So we tried it again. We did 5 days of progesterone, nothing, did 7 days of progesterone, again, nothing. So at this point she says, it could be, since you run a lot, it could be, you might not need to cut back on your running. But didn't go into much detail on why, on how that is all connected. And when you say cut back, like as a marathon runner, what does cut back mean? Is that only 4 days a week? Is that stopping at 10 miles? I mean, there's a lot of variety there. She didn't really know my schedule. But anyhow, she sent me to a fertility specialist and he found I had no uterine lining. So there's nothing to bleed out. There was no estrogen because I was at such low body fat. So luckily everything else looked good. My tubes were open. Thyroid looked okay. There was nothing, no real red flags except that I was not getting a period because I had no lining. The pill had masked all that. So I'm not sure when I lost it, right? It could have been the first marathon. There's no way of knowing because I was on the pill. So, he said, again, estrogen is in body fat. I didn't know any of this. That's the crazy part. Is that I'm like,
we don't get taught any of this.
Why aren't we told? Yes, exactly. And especially as you enter marathon running, why isn't it part of my coaching training? Why isn't that a big section of, hey, this is a red flag, this is something to look for? So, which is why I come on to podcasts, which is why you talk about this. So he said, you probably need to gain some body fat and again, cut back on your running. Still though, he still listed me as unexplained infertility. So there was still no diagnosis. There was still no mention of what hypothalamic amenorrhea is. Still, I didn't really have a direction on which to go. Okay, I need to gain weight. I don't know how it's all related. I don't know how much I need to gain. I don't know how, what the hypothalamus is. So we did 4 rounds. We had 4 attempted rounds, 5 attempted rounds in IUI. And we got to do 1, which failed. Every time we would do another medicated cycle, I just would not respond fully. Now I cut somewhat back on my running. I took out the intervals. So I was still running, but I wasn't doing like interval training like I was. I wasn't training on hills. So in my eyes, I had cut back because they said cut back with no clear direction. I'd gained some weight, but not too much. I was, instead of eating non-fat yogurt, I was eating low fat. That was a step up for me, but I was still like not eating the whole fat, still kind of, counting calories. Even though I was eating more, I was still very cognizant of how much I was eating, right? Especially now that I've cut back on my running. So I still had that fear of too much weight gain. By the time we got to almost a year, really a year after going off the pill, we were looking at IVF because I was not responding to these medications. I still did not have a word for hypothalamic amenorrhea. So I talked to another doctor after our first cycle, our first transfer failed. It was a chemical pregnancy, so it took, but 2 days later, we did another blood test and I was no longer pregnant. So that was a big shift. It was like, I need to really figure out what's going on, because why is none of this working when every other level looks fine? I feel healthy. There's no signs of overtraining, anything else except I'm not responding, right? So I talked to another doctor that I met at an event, and she said, oh, you sound kind of hypo. And I'm like, what is that? I mean, it's the first time I'd heard this mentioned. So she said, oh, hypothalamic amenorrhea. So I go home. I mean, this is an event, so I'm not going to talk to this woman for an hour about this, right? So I go home and research a ton. I have another meeting with her afterwards, and it's like every single thing that is mentioned is like, that is me, that is me, that is me, that is me, the overexercising, the restricting calories, just the running in general, the low body fat, all of these things is what I was experiencing. And it was like, just something clicked. It was like, that is why this is so important. That is what the level I need to be. I need to stop running. And it was really hard. I had already cut back and felt like I made this big sacrifice. But when I looked at it, it's like, hey, if I'm not responding to this, if I want this next cycle, we had one more embryo left. If I want this next transfer to work, I need to completely cut out running. Like that is what it is. So it's really this mental shift too that came with, why am I still doing this? Why am I still going out on runs when it's clearly not what I need right now? Why am I still buying low fat? Why am I afraid of fat? So yeah, I started eating like the whole fat yogurt. I stopped really trying to be strict with my calories. I loosened up on, I'm just going to eat when I'm hungry. The next transfer worked. Our son is now almost 2.5. And, I didn't get my period back during IVF, but I got it back postpartum. I got it back 3 months after completely weaning from nursing. And I've had it regular ever since. And I've drastically changed my relationship with running. I mean, I will still go for a run, but it is for totally different reasons. And I don't think that would have happened had I not had this experience. Had I just cut back, had I still had that fear of what happens if I totally stop, I was able to experience that and see it's not the end of the world and see that I still enjoy running, and see why I actually enjoy running outside of calorie burn, right? I found other ways to relieve stress. I think that that's the number one thing women fear is, cardio running is my stress relief. What will I do without it? And there's a ton of other things to do, but you have to have enough trust in your body to find them, right? To know that you can stop running, that you can stop doing these routine things that you think that you rely on, and find other avenues for stress relief. Yeah.
And there's so many avenues I want to go down, but let's start. This is like a deep question, and I know it's hard to answer. Do you feel like if you would have started off with increasing calories, like as soon as you came off the pill, increasing calories, like you would have known about HA, do you think it would have been possible to have your son naturally?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. I think that it clearly helped me actually have a successful pregnancy. However, had I known about this, which is why I'm like trying to intervene with women, is had I known about this and had a different time frame, yes, I do fully. We're trying to conceive right now, and I really do believe that it would have, who knows, there could have been another issue. You just never know. But in terms of what I was doing to my body through the calorie counting and the exercise, oh, 100%. That would have healed, and that's the great thing about HA, is that it is in your control. If you can be willing to open up and trust your body to do what it needs to do, then you can heal from it without, doctors are so quick to put you on a pill. Oh, you're missing a period, take the pill, right? And you don't need that. It's going to take a bit longer, but you can totally do it naturally.
And it's not like a blocked tube or severe scarring from endometriosis where a healthy diet or diet changes is going to like do much. So it is under your control, but it can be very difficult to overcome that mindset piece.
The mindset, yes. It is truly a mental struggle, because on the outside, people that don't have this, obsession and interest in healthy eating, that don't take it to that extreme level, that don't, only count their workouts if they're super sweaty and they last an hour. You tell someone that you need to gain weight and stop exercising, and they're like, oh, that's great. Mm-hmm. Like a free pass, enjoy, have fun. Where you were like, no, this is what I love. I don't really know what to do with my time or who I am without this. It's purely a mental journey. Yeah.
And it does become your identity. Like, you're the fit friend, you're the one who's always running on the weekends and always eats the salads. So that in itself can be very hard to stray away from.
It is a whole area that I work through with clients, of that, who are you outside of this? Because many of them have been doing it for, I was really into running. I started my first like half marathon 10 years before going through IVF. So I had been endurance running for a decade. That was very much, and it was my job, right? And I'm instructing runners. So it was very much a part of who I saw myself as, who I was known as. I'm a runner. Where now I honestly see it as, you are a runner if you choose to go out for a run. It does not matter how fast you go or how often you go. If you enjoy going for a run, then you are a runner. But I just didn't see it that way, right? I was a runner because I regularly participate in races. I could easily run 10 miles. That is the running that I identified with.
And did you enjoy it like that whole time? Or did you get to the point where you were like exhausted and you were like just forcing yourself and trying to keep up with that image?
For the most part, I did enjoy it. But I will say, and this is definitely a red flag, of if I wasn't in the either mood or too tired or the weather's not right to run, I would still run. Whereas now I run if everything says, yes, I want to run. The weather's good. My energy's good. I feel like going for a run. I would force it. And it wasn't always forcing it. I think that's where it gets so tricky, of like, yes, I do enjoy running. But are you able to take a break from it? And I was more concerned with, I need to hit this certain number of miles. Running is, I run 5 miles on Wednesday mornings. It's Wednesday morning, I'm going to run. Instead of, hey, I slept like crap last night. Maybe I can switch it around, or maybe I can just like go on a walk for 45 minutes. It was not a question of that. It was, this is what I do, so I'm going for my run.
And how did you feel like in yourself, like in your body during that time? Both like when you were on the pill, because we know that can sometimes cause symptoms, like moods can be an issue, anxiety. And then maybe when you came off the pill, did any symptoms become more noticeable? So like really lack of energy, hair loss?
I didn't really have any major signs. And that's why I was so confused as to how is this really going to help? I wasn't crashing on my runs. I was hitting my time goals. I was not feeling totally drained and beaten down afterwards. So in my eyes, it was like, oh, I'm training at an appropriate level. But I definitely have an energy deficit. Obviously, I wasn't fueling enough for those runs. I think that the main sign was more the anxiety or guilt I would feel if I did not complete the run, right? That was more the mood shift that I don't get now. It was more of, if I don't get this run in, my mood is completely negative and affected the rest of the day, and I have to make up for it.
What about with your diet as well? Were you intentionally under eating during your marathon training so that you would lose weight, or Was it just that you were maybe eating thousands of calories, but your exercise or your output was just way more?
I think it's kind of both. I was not intentionally trying to lose, but I was afraid to gain. I wanted to stay where I was, if that makes sense. And I was underweight. So I would, I was comfortable with a certain amount of calories. You read like, oh, 1,800 calories is plenty for a woman. Well, it's not. You need more. And I was running on top of that. Like 1,800 calories is if you're not doing anything and you can still eat more than that.
Just to keep your basic organs.
Yes. And so I think that the calorie count that I had in my mind was very skewed, that I did not learn until I went to recover. And it was like, oh my God, like, I don't count calories anymore. So obviously I don't know how many I'm eating now. But I'm not going hungry, where I would be so hungry some days. And it's like, oh, I'll eat a little bit more, instead of I need to replenish the thousands I've earned running 15 miles, not just a little more. I need to eat so much more than I think that I need. I need to be having at least 2,500 like every day. And that amount was like astronomical to me at the time. It just didn't seem possible that you could eat that much, not run as much, and have a stable weight.
Do you think it would be possible to like continue with the marathon running and on top of that just eating a ton of calories, so eating like 6,000 calories a day, but continue doing the running, be able to get your period back? Or is that I think it may be possible, but it might be too difficult, I think.
And it's so individual, but obviously there are marathon runners that do not lose a period, right? And that's the frustrating thing. It's, oh, she's fine. Well, it's very individual, so you have to see what's good for you. But I do think that it is more of a energy deficit. So if you're very cognizant of, one, how much you're eating, but are you sleeping enough? Are there other stressors? So if you're a marathon training, that needs to be the main or only stress in your life. If you've got 10 other things going on, work stress, relationship stress, all these other stressors, then that's going to be too much. But if you can isolate that stress to the physical stress of marathon running, be very cognizant of getting those, thousands, probably more calories than you think that you need, to make sure you are fueling properly for it and resting enough, then yeah, I think you can do it. It's just paying attention to those other signs, right? If you're on the pill, you're not going to know. But if you are able to watch your cycle and monitor that and make sure it's not, suddenly getting super short or suddenly getting super long, then yeah, I think that you can maintain it. It's just having that awareness of, is this my only stress? Or am I also stressing my body by not, staying up late and getting up early to get this run in? Am I fueling immediately after the run? And am I eating on those long runs? Am I eating right before, to make sure you're really taking care of your body and supporting it?
So many of my clients are on more of the extreme end in terms of like eating a little bit too healthy and exercising way more than the average person, but they compare themselves to other people or what they did when they were 20. Now they're like a mother of two. It's completely different. You can't expect your body to be able to do those same things. I think it would be useful to give a breakdown and simplify hypothalamic amenorrhea before we go any further in the conversation. So I mentioned that it's loss of a period basically due to stresses being underfueling, mental, emotional stress, physical stress. So could you give your overview of what this condition is and that whole energy in versus energy out balance?
Right. So what is affected? It's the hypothalamus. So it's a small area of your brain that it is sensing the stress level. It is also sensing leptin levels. So it is sensing the fat that you are consuming. So when you're not consuming enough fat, when you're underfueling, when you are overexercising, all of these stresses, it is sensing that you are not in the state. It needs to conserve energy. So it's going to shut down, it shuts down growth hormone, but also suppresses your reproductive system. So that's when you get either maybe anovulation. So maybe you're getting a light period, but you're not ovulating, or amenorrhea, you are totally missing your period. And like you said, it's mental stress too, right? It's not just not eating enough, and it's not just exercising too much, and remembering that that is individual. Like you said, comparing yourself to, well, I did this 20 years ago and my period was fine. Well, like you said, that was 20 years ago. Comparing yourself to an Olympic athlete, well, do you know how much they're eating? They've got a team of people working with them to monitor that stress.
It's like the full-time job. They don't have another job on top of that.
You're not an athlete. You're not a paid athlete. So when you're doing all that on top of, maybe you're already a mom, if you're doing that on top of running your own business, if you're doing it on top of, maybe you're moving, or you just got married, or you just got divorced. I mean, there's so many stressors that, yeah, maybe that exercise load was fine without all these other things present, but with all these other stressors, your hypothalamus is going to sense that and is going to start suppressing.
And I've got a whole episode on hypothalamic amenorrhea with Nicola Rinaldi, who is the author of a book, No Period, Now What? So I recommend checking that one out for more information. But I want to ask more about the body fat percentage, whether there's like a tipping point or like an ideal fertility percentage body fat wise. Yeah. And also, do you ever see women of normal body fat levels and weight, or even being overweight, who have this condition as well?
Yeah, so we'll start with the range, right? Because we see like the healthy, BMI range, like 18.5 to just under 25. Fertility, you're looking at more like a 20 to 24 BMI. Body fat, at least 22%. So, and I posted this the other day, like your fit body is not your most fertile body, right? It's a different type of body that you need to create life and to sustain a healthy pregnancy. And it's often more fat than we want. And that is diet culture. That is the thin ideal speaking. It is just not a thin, lean body is not what you need to make a baby. You need more fat on you. And that's, a lot of times not what people want to hear. But, I like to look at it as this is a phase of your life. Like this is your training to get your body to this way to make a baby. Is different from training your body to run a marathon, right? It's totally different looks. I do see women at a normal BMI that have HA, right? It is these, if they're not sleeping enough, all these stressors that they can't really, mental stress that's not as tangible as I work out X amount and I eat X amount of calories. All these non-tangible stressors can really play a huge role. And so if you are not, if you're exercising too much for your body, maybe you're not underweight, but if it is too much stress for your specific hypothalamus, it's going to shut it down. That's not the only indicator. I think that I'm glad you brought that up, because that is this caveat that some women see of, oh, well, it's primarily women underweight, but it's not. That is not the hallmark. That is not, oh, well, you're not underweight, you can't have it. That is just typically a symptom that we see. But you can definitely have it if you've got too much stress. It doesn't really matter if your body is in that perfect BMI. And the thing is, you may be able to stay around that BMI. You might not have to gain a lot of weight. You're just looking at what other stressors can you remove. It's like a puzzle.
What about people who are like naturally slim and only have a body fat percentage of like 19%? Do they always need to increase, or is their body just used to that?
I don't think so. And that is what's so infuriating for women, trying to gain, is of, oh, well, she, whoever she is thin and she got pregnant on the first try. That's where her body is. So the thing is, when you are finding you have to restrict calories and keep up this high level of exercise to keep your body a certain weight, then that is not where your body wants to be at. You should be at this kind of, set weight when you are moderately exercising most days of the week, like under an hour, and you are fueling well over 2,000 calories. So if you can do that, see where your body lands, and that's where you need to be. And it's going to be different. Like if you are in your 30s, it's going to be different than when you're 21, right? It's your body is changing. It would be very weird if we stayed the same body size and body shape as in our early 20s, wouldn't it? But people feel like that is the ideal. That is when I look my best. And that is what I'm trying to look for. I'm 35. It would be very weird if I had the same body as when I was 20, right?
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about the tipping point when it comes to weight and fertility? So we've just been talking about how being too lean or having a low body fat percentage can be detrimental to fertility. What about the other end of the spectrum as well, being overweight or having excessive body fat levels?
Well, so, still the recommended for fertility is a BMI of under 25. However, if I was going to err on one side, from what I see and what I read and what I learn and what I know, I would err on being slightly overweight versus underweight. So in general, but you're right, you don't want to go the complete other end, right? And we're not recommending for these women to gain weight to be, suddenly put on 50 pounds and not give a crap about what they eat. Is just being more lenient, right? Is just being not so strict. So in terms of losing weight, I do want to say that if maybe your doctor has recommended to lose weight, maybe you're ready, physically and emotionally to lose some weight. From what I see, you can lose 10 to 15% of your body weight, and it will negatively affect your cycle. So you just want to be careful that's not this drastic loss, because when you are drastically cutting or drastically changing up your exercise routine from absolutely nothing to an hour a day, it can be too much of stress, and that will trigger that stress response of let's shut things down. She's losing too much. So I would just recommend everything being gradual.
I've also seen the weight that someone was when they started their period, or like their body fat percentage at that point. That's kind of like the set point. And if they stray to, they don't eat enough or they restrict and lose a lot of weight, that can influence it as well. Do you see that? Obviously, you're going to be lighter than what you are in your teens.
Yes. So often I feel like what we see is women, especially let's say they have HA and they're trying to regain, they're like, oh, but I'm at the weight as I was when I had a healthy period. You might need to go a little past that. And you might go a little past that and stay there, or you might go a little past that, get your body comfortable, and then you can back off a couple pounds as to what is comfortable. You're really trying to get your body to trust you, because the second it doesn't trust you, it's going to shut it down. So if you show that you are feeding it when it's hungry, if you show that you are resting when it's tired and giving yourself that time to replenish, it's going to trust you, and you can lose a little bit without it freaking out, right? But if you only gain the bare minimum, and the second you go over that, you start cutting back again, it's not going to trust you, and it's going to shut it down.
And I was going to ask as well how to find the balance between eating for fertility, so getting enough nutrients in there, versus just trying to get in the calories, whatever the food is. Because when I had Nicola on, she is just like, eat kind of whatever and just get enough calories. And we kind of differed on that opinion. I've been focused on like hormonal health and egg quality and adrenals and all of that. I'm more focused on the healthy food sources, with pizza and pasta if you want it, but not on a consistent basis. So where do you stand with that?
That's
in terms of,
that's a tricky one. I feel like I'm more with you. I feel like it's more, in my opinion, it's more the mindset. Like you said, having pizza if you want it. So mine is more the mindset of, I want to tell women that if they are needing to gain weight and stop restrictive eating, that it is good to say, yes, have a fast food burger, have a pizza, more to get into their heads that is okay and that's not detrimental. So I would not say eat, whatever you want at all times, force that food, because that causes another stress. But
it's like another form of disordered eating.
It is. I think it can be. It's more becoming comfortable with the fact that I can have something that I used to label bad for me, and it's okay. So whatever that takes to get your mind around, hey, let's see what happens if I eat this pizza and I don't restrict the next day, of let me experiment with these different foods and be okay with it. I think that women go on this kind of like, think of it as like a speedometer of, I never eat ice cream, I never have carbs, to, oh my God, I can have them all the time, to, hey, I have them sometimes. Being able to overindulge and figure out how to get back to that healthy balance is more key for mindset. But I agree, you don't want to fuel up. When I was trying to gain weight, I was like, well, I don't want to gain it all on donuts and ice cream, right? And I didn't, but you don't want to keep restricting. You don't want to use that as that fallacy of being too healthy, of, well, I'm trying to be healthy, but you're still terrified of having real ice cream.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be able to have it and know that it's not detrimental to your health.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And it could
It's
be
hard.
I know. Yeah, that's the tricky thing, and I like your approach to it. And some practitioners, and Nicola as well, said that 2,500 calories is like the goal for everyone. That's the minimum that you need to be eating. Do you find that to be a little bit different as well? And how quickly do you go from 1,500 to 2,500? Is that going to be like a really gradual process? Or are you trying to get that weight on as quickly as possible?
I feel like I feel more gradual. And I feel like if I had a client that is ready to, like, yes, I'm going to eat 2,500 a day, and they are not stressed about that, they're okay with that, then do it. But if I've also had clients that are like, that number is absolutely petrifying to me, I need to walk it up, then we walk it up. Then you get comfortable too. And who knows, you might be eating 2,000 calories and you start your period. If you want to walk it up, I am all for walking it up. I'm all for making it comfortable to get to the level you need to be at. I just don't want there to be that fear. I want it to be of, hey, I want to get comfortable with this, and then I'll look at doing more, instead of, I'm only going to 2,000, I'm not going to go above it, right? Of having that hard limit. It's like, I want women to be able to wrap their minds around, hey, I may need more. Let's experiment and see what it is. Because the number one, the hardest thing about this, and it's so interesting because I feel like it's the same with HA recovery and with going through fertility treatments, is that unknown. If someone could tell you you're going to need to gain 15 pounds, or it's going to take 8 months, it's like, all right, okay, I can do it. It's going to take that long. I can do it. But when you're looking down this endless path of, I don't know how much I'm going to gain, I don't know how long this is going to take, that is when it gets totally overwhelming, and people tighten up or want to give up. So I always recommend setting super small goals. Set a goal of 5 pounds. If you don't want to weigh yourself, say, I'm going to make these changes for 4 weeks and I'm going to reassess. So you've really like encapsulated the small amount of time or small amount of weight to focus on. You get comfortable and then you go from there, instead of, this could be the rest of my life, because that's what it feels like. When it's this total change, that is what it feels like. So really to focus on that next like small goal.
And I've personally never had the problem of being able to eat enough and get enough calories on a healthy diet. Some people do struggle with that though. They're like, how do I get 2,500, 3,000 calories of healthy foods? But let's say someone has a health issue. I'm just thinking of the people who have autoimmune or multiple food sensitivities, and they can't eat the breads and the cheese and the pasta and all of that stuff. Do you think it is possible to eat that amount of calories on a healthy diet? And if so, could you give some like foods that could be really good to add in, like nutrient dense but high calorie foods?
Yeah, nutrient dense is key. And sometimes we do see some, obviously if it's like a total food allergy, it won't go away. But some food intolerances or gut issues can be healed because it just turns out they weren't eating enough, right? It turns out they cut out carbs for no reason, and they're really not sensitive. So that is interesting to experiment. Make sure you're actually sensitive to them. But obviously you don't want to put that stress on your body if you truly are. I always recommend, nut and nut butters is the easiest thing. You can add peanut butter to a smoothie and up the calories by 200 without feeling stuffed. I think watching your fiber intake and watching how you space your calories is key. So you're not bulking fiber, so suddenly you feel totally full and bloated, you don't want to eat, and then you're at a calorie deficit. Or you're kind of watching it throughout the day, and then suddenly at the end of the day, you're like, oh, I'm at 1,700, I really need to eat more. Then you get stuffed and are uncomfortable.
Yeah,
so
not having huge bowls of salads, right, and vegetables.
Yes. So, you want to eat, it's like the opposite of dieting, really. Just think of anything that's the opposite of dieting, that's what you should do. Just instead of looking at ways to cut calories, right? So adding, like, I got a huge thing of sunflower seeds. If ever I make a salad, I'm putting sunflower seeds. I'm making my own salad dressing with olive oil, so I'm not getting low-fat dressing. Those are easy ways that you don't feel stuffed by putting sunflower seeds and olive oil on your salad dressing, but you're adding 200 calories. So any way that you can kind of sneak them in, into smoothies. Flaxseed is great. I've been making my own granola, so I'll add flaxseed to that. Any soup you
Avocado,
can add stuff
like
to.
all the healthy
Avocado is my
fats, they're
favorite.
like the most
All the healthy fats.
calorically dense.
If you do find with eggs is a great way to get in more calories and just more nutrients. Cooking with more butter or more olive oil, more ghee, just adding a little extra into any recipe. If you're having toast and cream cheese, put some butter on it first. So you've got butter and cream cheese. Just those small ways that you're adding stuff in that is healthy fats, healthy calories, but you're getting a lot. I mean, peanut butter is the easiest. Peanut butter, you just have a spoonful. Peanut butter, and like you said, avocado, because avocado you can add to smoothie. You can add to pretty much any meal. It's gonna make it better, and it's just an easy way to get more calories.
And how long do you recommend tracking for? Are there any apps that you recommend using, and how long to do it for? Because then it can become a bit of a stress and you become obsessive with tracking. So where's that fine line?
I think and this is going to be depend on the person, because some people really don't want to see that number. So if you don't want to see that number, just start by adding more butter, just start by adding more avocado, more nuts. So you're not really counting, but you know you're getting more. I mean, you might just do it for a couple days just to see what that volume of food looks like and adjust, because you're going to know where you were. And you're going to look at what is adding 600 more calories look like. Like, you can take pictures of your food. That's another good way to do it, to take pictures of your meals. So it's kind of an easier way to track, but you can look at the volume and you can see what fats that you're adding. It's more of a visual. A lot of people find that a little easier, but I feel like you just need to do it for a couple days. I mean, maybe a week to see fluctuations, but no longer than that, because you're going to see different meals. You're going to find different meals to incorporate. I mean, I feel like most of us get in some routine of eating a couple of the same things for breakfast, a couple of the same things for lunch. So once you kind of nail those down, you don't really need to count anymore.
And with exercise, how do we know if we're doing too much versus not enough? So some people as well say you just need to eat thousands of calories and not do any exercise, sit on the couch and watch TV. Obviously that's going to come with negative health risks as well. So would you recommend that temporarily? Would you say, again, just dial back? Are there better forms of exercise? Is running the worst? Like, I have many questions, so you just go off on it, whatever you want to talk about with exercise.
Yeah, no, I feel like running, and unfortunately, because I love running, running is by and large, I feel like what we see repeatedly of this will mess with your cycle. So if you're running, cut out the running, and that may be it. Honestly, you don't know, that might be it, but it's that higher intensity. So walking, I mean, I still recommend going on walks throughout this whole process, no matter where you are. Walking, yoga is great, yoga or Pilates. So you're getting that movement, you're getting that strength. I still did strength training. I wasn't lifting as heavy, I wasn't going for like records, but I still used dumbbells. I did a lot of body weight, maybe just 2 days a week. You want to, I feel like the time is a big thing. So keeping them well under an hour. I mean, 30 minutes is plenty. If you go for a 45-minute walk, as long as you're not like power walking up a hill that entire time. But if you can go out for 30 to 45 minutes, that's perfectly fine. You don't need more than that. So getting comfortable with that. I feel like walking every day is fine. Doing yoga. I think a big shift of the mindset is feeling like you have to do it. So thinking I can do these things, but if I don't feel up to it, if my schedule doesn't allow, I'm not trying to cram it in. I think that is that little groove that people get into of, this was my workout routine and this is what I need to do. And if I need to get up earlier, move things around, I have to get it in. When that's not the case, it's like, this is your ideal. And if it doesn't happen, it's okay. Do something different the next day. So being more flexible, I think, is key.
Yeah, so many of my clients are surprised when I tell them I'd rather them have an extra hour in bed than wake up at 5 a.m. and go to the gym. They're like, what? You're a nutritionist. Yes. Aren't you going to be telling me to exercise more? And I'm like, no, it's not what your body needs.
Because you know them. Some people, yes, because some people, if they're never working out, you would recommend that. But these people. I know my clients. I know these women. And they need the opposite. They need to be allowed to rest. And that sleep is so restorative. A lot of people, when they go into recovery, if they've been running almost daily and they suddenly stop, they feel like they're way more tired. And it's because their body is like, oh my God, we can repair. We've got all these repairs that we can do now. So you just get so tired physically and you're like, I'm not even doing anything. Why am I so tired? And it's because you finally allowed your body to rest. You finally gave it enough calories to make repairs that it's just going to town on repairing all of these muscles and repairing these systems. It's the most important thing that you can do. I mean, sleep before you get an exercise for sure.
And that's what makes people think that exercise is a good thing for them. Like, oh, see, I should be exercising every day because my energy is so much so much worse when I'm not. But it's just that they've been on this constant adrenaline high, which isn't a good thing long term.
It's when it's chronic, right? I mean, it's fine if you you're going to sleep crappy one night and you go to a class because you've been planning with your friend. That's going to happen. It's that it doesn't happen every day. Like, that is the difference. That should be definitely the exception of I slept like crap or I went on a bit longer run than I planned, instead of this is what I do every day, no matter what. It should be I accidentally got less sleep one night instead of I routinely sleep 6 hours or less.
Why is it that the running and chronic cardio is more detrimental to hormones and fertility than something like strength training?
Yeah, it raises the cortisol. So they've shown that at least if you get 3 hours of intense training a week, this is in Nicola's book, it will negatively affect your cycle. And maybe, like I said, maybe that's not the absence of a period, but maybe it's anovulatory, maybe it's a shorter luteal phase. There's going to be some effect. And so strength training is just lower intensity. You're in much more control instead of pounding your body. So once you get all of that cortisol, I'm actually just writing a post on this today. Once you get more of that cortisol in your body, it is what is, it is signaling to the hypothalamus. It is what is suppressing those sex hormones, reproductive hormones, and the growth hormones. So you're not even going to see, if you are trying to gain muscle, but you're also running, you're not going to see that muscle gain because your cortisol is too high to stimulate the growth of muscles.
Yeah, you're constantly in a breakdown or catabolic state.
Yes, exactly.
So some people notice better body composition when they cut back on the exercise, and we probably all heard of those. We might have a friend who starts marathon training and actually puts on weight. That's classic, like inflammation, high stress hormones. So sometimes
your body
doing the opposite.
Yeah, it's hanging on to everything it can because it's, it can't make those repairs. A lot of women, you're going to bloat when you eat more just suddenly when you've changed it. That tends to go away. But women get very afraid because they first see the weight gain in their midsection and their hips, and is because your body is trying to protect your organs, because it's like, I don't know how long this weight is going to be around. I don't know how long she's going to do this. Like, let's hold on to it. But like I said, the more you trust your body, the longer you give it, it's going to say, okay, we're in a happy place now. We can kind of redistribute and get more comfortable.
And what are some of the benefits someone can expect when they start to eat more and the cycle is back on track? So like hypothalamic amenorrhea type symptoms versus optimally healthy energy, sex drive, all of those things. Like, what did you notice?
That is my favorite thing that Nicola talks about, because there's a lot of mindset, there's a lot of negative. It's hard. But when you look at all the positives, I always tell people, and every single one of the women I work with that gets their period back agrees that like their period back was like a bonus. All the other things that they got is worth so much more. It's really just the relaxed attitude around exercise, the not feeling guilt around food. That's a huge one, of being able to go out somewhere and order what they want instead of worrying about the calories, indulging one day and instead of restricting the next, being able to just go on like normal. The thoughts around food and exercise, like, you're still thinking about it, but it's not all you're thinking about. So you've got so much more time and energy to spend on other things in your life. I mean, that's an exercise I go through with my clients is, let's look at the things you're grateful for. Let's look at things outside of health and fitness that you have going on in your world that you have just totally blocked out and ignored. Other things are being cold. I have Raynaud's, where my fingers will just go numb. The severity of it, and it doesn't happen nearly as much anymore. And it definitely doesn't get as bad as it did. It will happen occasionally instead of every time I went out in the cold. So that's just one little thing. Many women report better sleep, that they're sleeping better. Some women were maybe getting like night sweats because their thyroid is messed up. And so once that evens out, that kind of stops. God, what else? Really just like higher sex drive. That's one thing, because think about it, it's your sex hormones, it's your reproductive hormones that have been suppressed. Once those turn back on, you're just feeling better. Your libido is higher. You're more relaxed. I mean, I think that's a big thing, is you're less anxious around food and exercise and all that planning. Because if you think about, it's not just the stress of the exercise and planning your meals, it is that mental stress of, when am I going to get this workout in? The thoughts around it, outside of just the physical part of running or getting that workout in, the thoughts and stress around getting it in and planning it and keeping it up. And if I go on vacation, how can I continue with my workouts? And do I need to work out more before and after to make up for it? Like, all that is eliminated.
What are some of the limiting beliefs or traumas or mindset patterns with some of your clients as to why they have this issue in the first place? Like the need to constantly be lean and look good and exercise so much. What are some common, I know it's a little bit different for everyone, but are there any commonalities that you hear?
A lot of it, I mean, it's a sense of control. So it's one thing that you can control. So that's a big part of it. I think a lot is this fear of the unknown, this fear of, if I were to loosen up on this, I'm going to gain an uncontrollable amount of weight. And it's that trust in your body. Maybe they've never trusted it before. They've always like had this range of, I want to be this weight, and is this then ideal? I mean, a lot of it is diet culture, that this society that we're born into, and these messages we're bombarded with constantly, the way we talk to each other, the way women talk about their bodies, is always that losing weight and being thin is what you should be striving for. And to break from that feels really uncomfortable. And it's like, I'm not doing maybe I'm not taking care of myself. I think people equate, if they are not on this constant path to lose weight and to get leaner, then they're not taking care of themselves. When it's not either or, right? It is, how can you work out in a way that is restorative and that feels good, versus how can I pound my body to make sure I look a certain way? So I do feel like it's the thin ideal. It's the sense of control that they get. It is the identity. It is, this is who I am. And instead of looking outside of that, it is, I have to maintain this to maintain who I am and what people see me as.
And last few questions now, how did you deal with the weight gain? Because that can be, again, the scariest part for people. And I found that, like, telling people to buy clothes that fit better, because they keep onto the size 6 jeans and try and fit into those when that might not be realistic. So do you have any tips on mindset around the weight gain in particular?
Yeah, well, first off, so much of it is in your head. I recently posted a picture of my before, more like my maybe lowest weight, and then just a couple weeks ago, and I see a difference. Multiple people commented, I don't see a difference. Like, you look exactly the same. So much is in our head. And I started thinking about the insecurities or stuff that I didn't love about my body, is the same things that when I was at my lowest and getting no period, I still had the same things, hang-ups. So they're not going anywhere. It's actually higher body confidence now, because I'm comfortable with myself and not trying to control and micromanage how my body looks and responds, that I feel better in my own skin. So I think that that's a big one, is getting comfortable clothes that fit, clothes that you feel good in, right? That's a big one. I mean, this is a weird time with coronavirus, so we're not really going out anyway. This is a great time to do this, because you can just wear, yoga pants and sweats all day. And I think that just reminding yourself that no one cares like you do. No one's noticing like you do. My own husband didn't really notice, and he's with me all the time. So I think that really working on changing your mindset and how you feel about yourself, work on your body confidence and your body image is the biggest thing. I much rather women spend their time and energy working on their body image than trying to calculate and figure out exactly how much weight they need to gain, because there's no benefit to that. Even if you could somehow calculate, I need to gain this amount to get it back, what good does that do you? If you are not, you could get your period back, and if you've not done that other work, you're not going to be happy. You're going to be in the same mental spot. So really working on, where is this coming from? Asking yourself those questions. Why do I care about this? When did this start? And looking back at, how did I feel when I was most comfortable with my body and when I didn't think about food and working out all the time? What was going on in my life then? Like, what was great about that? What can I bring from that back? How can I get that feeling back?
What advice would you give to someone who doesn't necessarily want kids, either now or ever? And she's like, I don't really care about my period. I'd rather look amazing, have these 6-pack abs and be really lean. Why is that not a great thing?
Yeah, it's still, I mean, it's the fifth vital sign, right? It is, if you're missing a period, you are not healthy. You're not in a healthy space. And I get that the pull is much greater if you want to have kids. That is the main reason. Women, for one, figure out that their period is missing because they go off the pill and then realize it. But there's the bone health issue. Which is crazily why doctors put you back on the pill. If you're not getting a period, let's get you back on the pill to protect your bones. But it is doing so much more harm than good.
Yeah, stealing all the nutrients needed for healthy bone growth.
And I think going back to that mindset of, think of, even if you don't want kids, are you really happy? Like you asked me earlier, are you really happy in this spot where you feel like you need to work out this much? Are you really happy, truly happy with how your workout routine is? Can you picture doing that and eating this way for the rest of your life? Because if it's still more of a stress and it's not comfortable, you're not fully enjoying your life. Kids are not. You need to be in that place where you've got that more food freedom, where you are not feeling guilty if you didn't get a workout in, where you're not stressed over hitting certain running times. You need to be in that spot where you trust your body, and it's just going to reward you in so many other ways. I mean, kids is like I said, that's a big motivator for women. But I think that once they are on that path and once they do this work and get a period, it's like, oh my God, how was I living that way before? Like, that was so stressful. And all of that is gone now.
And just even thinking, would you rather have this lean, ideal, quote, body type now, but be crippled with osteoporosis in the future? Like maybe when you're 80 years old, you have to think about long-term sustainability and long-term health, because the missing period is so important to address as soon as possible, even if your kids aren't on the radar.
It shows so much.
Pardon?
Well, and if you like running, do you want to be able to run a long time? Because if you keep doing it in a way that is not healthy and you're not getting a cycle, you're not going to be able to, because women get stress fractures all the time from this. Your body is going to break down. So do you want to run really hard for 10 years, or do you want to be able to, in 30 years, go out for a 3-mile run? What's more important?
Good point. And is there a resource or book on this subject that you'd like to recommend? So if someone's listening and they're like, that's me, I need help in this area. Obviously, I mentioned the No Period Now What book by Nicola Rinaldi. Is that like your go-to?
I call it the HA Bible. I think that because it accounts for, it gives you so much more detail. Like I said, when my doctor mentioned cutting back on running, I didn't have all this background information on it, so it didn't fully connect the dots. So this book really connects all the dots, but the bigger thing is it gives firsthand accounts. So you're reading throughout the book women's experience. So when you're saying the thought that you have of, oh my God, I don't know if I can do this, then you read a woman's quote of, I didn't think I could do this, and how they got through it. So that is an excellent book. If your main goal is to get pregnant, not really to do with HA, but taking charge of your fertility is a great one. It does touch on exercise, but it gives a whole picture of diet in a way that is not obsessive of, here's everything you need. It's like, here's foods that are good for fertility, instead of making it this like, oh my God, I have to eat this way. It's more of a general boost in health, which I really, really find helpful. I have a Facebook group called Recover Your Period. Maybe we can link to it. That's full of women on the same journey. So I love being in there because they are supporting each other. So it's like real-time support, because you can read these books, but what is really helpful is to be able to vent or to ask a question to someone who is going through the same thing as you, and to really feel connected in it. Because if your friends aren't in that space, if they don't understand why you like running so much, if they don't understand why this is so hard, they might listen to you, but they don't know what to say. And it's going to get really frustrating. Your spouse, it's a tricky spot because they instantly feel how sensitive this is. They don't want to say the wrong things. These groups help you find ways to talk about how to get support from people around you.
I'll definitely
what
look
does
at that as well.
look like? How can you support me in this? And maybe it's just like, can you just let me vent every now and then and not say anything, but just let me vent? Just being able to ask for the support that you need.
What's one thing that you do every day to stay in hormonal harmony? So it sounds like you've got to a good place in terms of your diet and your exercise. Is there something that's like a practice for you daily that really keeps you motivated and keeps you feeling happy and healthy?
Yeah, I've been doing, and I get up really early because I have a toddler, so I need that me time. So making sure I have that time in the morning. And so I go to bed early so I can get up early. But I'll do about 15 minutes of yoga or some stretching first thing in the morning. First thing when I come downstairs, that is what I do. It really feels good. I mean, instead of pounding it out with the run, I feel like I get a lot of the same benefits. And that's like every morning. And then before I go to bed, I say out loud a few gratitudes. And that has been, I would have rolled my eyes at that before, but it really does help put things into perspective. And falling asleep with that positivity and recapping the good things that happened that day outside of your body, outside of health, outside of fitness. Just thinking of, we moved here about 1.5 years ago. I think of, I'm so happy that we found the place that we did. I'm so happy where we are now. I'm so happy for the new friends I made. Thinking of the bigger things, to look at the bigger picture of your life outside of what you look like.
Agreed. I do that every day too. And it's one of the quickest and most effective ways to reduce stress hormones and get into that rest, digest, heal nervous system state.
Yeah, I mean, it's a minute. It's
very
1
powerful.
minute.
Yeah.
It takes no time, and it really does. Because it's doing it every day, to create those positive connections instead of the negative neural pathways of negative thinking that just get deeper and deeper. If every day you're thinking of a few positive things, like you said, it's going to reduce the stress hormones without really doing anything.
And it will make you look out for new things in the day as well.
Yeah.
So this really good thing happened. Or when you're out at the supermarket, the grocery store, you're like, oh, I can think about that later. It's one of my gratitude points. So it just starts to put you in more of an optimistic mindset, which is so important.
You're going to get more from that than running every day, like by and far. You're going to get way more if you can routinely see you have to be positive all the time, but if you can routinely see positive things around you, you're going to bounce back much quicker. If you have like a true setback or something truly, it's not like bad things or upsetting things won't happen, but when they do, you're not going to dwell on it for days on end. You're going to be able to pull yourself out much, much quicker.
Absolutely. And so after your nice relaxing morning routine, your yoga, your stretch, what is your go-to breakfast? So some people struggle with breakfast. Some people like skip it completely because either they're not hungry or they do their fasted workouts, which will probably not be a great thing if you're trying to get your period back. So what's like a good balanced breakfast that fuels your exercise, being a mom, and wanting to enhance your fertility at the same time?
Yeah. I used to do oatmeal all the time, and I still love oatmeal. And I would put, sometimes I would put like pumpkin in it or some peanut butter. So I'll do that. Or lately I've been doing, especially because it's hotter now, so the oatmeal doesn't always sound good. I'll do just an avocado toast. I'll do whole grain toast, spread just plain avocado on it, a little salt, some hummus. I eat hummus every day. Some hummus, and then just one scrambled egg with some cheese in it. So it takes no time. It's like it's toasting while I am making the egg. Just layer it and you can eat it pretty much anywhere. It's like I can take it with me if I walk the dog. So that's a really quick one that gets a ton of nutrients and keeps you full too.
Quick, simple, and delicious, which is what I personally love as well.
I need it quick. Yeah, exactly.
Samantha, last question is, where can people find more from you online? So you mentioned your Facebook group. I will link that in the show notes. What about website, Instagram, and what kind of services do you offer?
Yeah, so my website is simplywellcoaching.com. And then on Instagram, I am simplywellcoaching, just at simplywellcoaching, where I'm posting everything that we talked about is what I post on. Ways to work with me, and I'm always kind of changing it to make sure I'm addressing people where they are. The most direct is one-on-one coaching, and that takes the form of maybe HA recovery, or just trying to balance your hormones with exercise, trying to develop that healthy relationship with exercise. I think that is a huge struggle for a lot of people. They start that journey and then they get stuck. So walking them through that, walking them through the mindset shifts. I also do what I call a cycle up breakthrough. So that is just one 90-minute session. So we will go over all histories and you'll leave with a game plan. And then from there, you get a full week to kind of email and chat back and forth on, hey, I got stuck here, or I didn't think of this question. This came up after our talk 2 days later. So we can go through that. But it's really to kind of set you on the right path. And that is either trying to get your period back, or maybe you recently got it back and you're like, hey, not everything is fixed. This didn't fix everything. Where do I go from here? I was very focused on getting my cycle back and didn't think past that point. So that cycle up breakthrough is a very direct way to kind of get a taste of one-on-one coaching, but still have kind of a plan without the 12-week commitment.
Great. Yeah, and I'm sure people are going to want to get in touch. So I want to thank you so much for your time and sharing your story with us. And I can guarantee there's going to be a lot of women listening, nodding their heads, wanting to find out more on this subject, because as we said, we don't get taught any of this. And from what we're told in the magazines and the media, more exercise is better, and we just need to eat less, move more in order to be healthy. But that's absolutely not the case, because you and me can both we share our experience, and it doesn't end well the majority of the time.
No, there's no end to that spiral.
But the good thing is that you can come out the other side and there is hope. Again, we've both experienced that as well.
Without medical intervention. I mean, that's the great thing, is that you can have these mindset shifts, and you're going to be so much of a fuller life because of it.
Agreed. Well, thank you so much, Samantha. This has been really great.
Yay, thank you.